I guess in retrospect, Westminster has been everything that I hoped I would find at a small liberal arts college. That I would be able to interact with my students, that I would get to know my students, that I would come to know and become friends with my colleagues, that I was primarily interested in being a teacher, and that Westminster puts a premium on being a teacher, and that I could also do some research and have some opportunities to grow intellectually. And I ultimately came to the conclusion that Westminster was the place for me, and that I was actually meant to be a professor at a small liberal arts college.
I arrived at Westminster in early September 1975. In fact, I celebrated my 9/11 birthday at the Fidel House, which was my 33rd birthday. So I started in 1975 thinking that I would be here for a few years, and here I am 42 years later and retired from Westminster.
I just cherish getting together with alums and running into alums, and out of the blue, alums will send me emails saying, I want to say thank you to you for everything you did for me, and here's what I'm doing, and I thought your teaching and mentorship made a difference in my life.
I was telling a student earlier today, when you get to know me well, you'll discover there's not many things that I do very well. I'm pretty inept in a lot of things. But one of the things that I was pretty good at is I was able to know every single student on campus for 20 years. I knew every single student. I knew every new freshman coming in. By the time classes started, we had this contest that if they could stand up in a class or in a group, and if I didn't know their name, I'd have to buy them a Coke. And I never bought very many Cokes. 77, 78, there was discussion of how can we increase our enrollment, and one of the decisions was simply by going co-education, we would double our prospect pool, and that's what Westminster did. And I would argue today that the best decision that Westminster ever made was making the decision to go co-ed in 1978, which started in the fall of 1979.
I remember growing close to a lot of faculty members who have now unfortunately retired. But always it was the students and making contact with some students and finding students that I could relate to and who could relate to me.
There were a number of fabulous women role models here that were well prepared to help bring in new young women. And that first year we had, I think, 29 freshman women and maybe 6 or 7 transferred women. So coeducation started in 1979, and it didn't take long for it to flourish.
And I would say that recently a number of my students raised more than $1.2 million to endow a professorship in my name. And in organizing that project, two of the students who organized it, the main organizers were Jim Bennett and Phil Beckman. And then Elizabeth Cole also stepped in. Elizabeth Brown she was at the time. But in organizing that project, I sat down and I thought, let me look over my old roll books and see how many students I had some kind of a relationship, which I would describe as a mentoring relationship outside of the classroom, where we didn't just interact in the classroom, but outside of the classroom, we talked about politics, we talked about culture, we talked about their career ambitions, and I wrote down 750 names. And that's been so important to me. And it's been so important to me to see how many of those 750 students that I mentioned were willing to make contributions to the professorship. And I talked to many of them on the phone, asking them to make a contribution to the professorship, which, by the way, doesn't help me in any way financially. It's going to help whoever has the professorship in the future. And so many former students were willing to contribute. And it's a joy to see them leading lives of success, significance, and service. Really, it truly is. I think this has been my life's work, and the success of these students has been what I have achieved in a certain sense, helped to achieve, I should say, because they've all done it with their own dint of their own hard work, of course. Yeah, and then in raising the money for the professorship, so many students were willing to contribute funds to the professorship, which helps the college in a great way. It's not only an affirmation of my mentoring and my teaching, but really it's a way to give back to the college, and it was a way to give back to the college. And I was impressed with how many students. It's one thing to say I like a professor. And it's another thing to say, I liked him well enough to give money to endow a professorship in his name. And that was really very special for me. And I don't think that I could have had that at any other school.
I mean, Westminster was really blessed with lots of great alums. So there's a really tight alumni connection with many of these people that is really important for the college. And so there's probably others that I'm leaving out, like Bill Reller, who has been terrific. He helped with the Kirby scholarship, and then he's helped with President Conde and his fundraising, etc. But these are just people from all over the country who've made a difference at Westminster. And we need more of those people. And I hope people watching this video may feel a pang that maybe they could give us $10 or give us $1,000 or whatever that they can afford.
Well, Westminster is at a point now where it needs the assistance, the financial assistance of its loyal alums. I love this school, and I know that there are many students out here who also love this school. People have come here, students have come here. Virtually every one of them has been supported by tuition discounts, scholarships, grants. They came here. They were supported in their efforts to get a high-quality education at a great liberal arts college. And I would appeal to them to help make that a reality for other students, to contribute to the general fund, to help this school survive and thrive.